This week's second top story comes out of Orlando, where a great-grandmother was arrested at Disney World for having CBD oil in her purse as she was checking in through security. She apparently had a doctor's note with her, but I'm not sure if she actually had a medical cannabis recommendation, and I'm also unsure where she bought the CBD oil from. Did she buy it from a licensed MMTC, or did she buy it from a gray market dealer like a vitamin shop or a gas station? Nonetheless, after discovering the CBD oil in her purse, Orange County police officers arrested her. This is an interesting story because of all the hype CBD oil has garnered in 2019. So CBD's full name is cannabidiol. It's a non-psychoactive cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. CBD commonly helps people with arthritis, which in this case is what the grandmother was using it for, and other chronic pain, anxiety, inflammation, depression, and many other conditions. There are roughly 113 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, but the two most popular ones in today's industry are THC and CBD. THC is the intoxicating cannabinoid, and CBD is the non-psychoactive cannabinoid, but still very effective medically. Now, cannabinoids are simply just the chemical compounds that are in the cannabis plant. And we as humans have an endocannabinoid system, which when we intake cannabis, our endocannabinoid system takes in all of those cannabinoids. So the CBD market kind of exploded when the 2018 federal farm bill passed in December of last year, which removed hemp from the CSA, Controlled Substances Act. Now, hemp is all parts of the cannabis plant that have less than 0.3% THC. This bill opened the door for creating cannabis products that have less than 0.3% THC, but have X amount of CBD depending on the product. This paved the way for producers of hemp-derived CBD products to come to market. So just to compare, the cannabis that Florida MMTCs sell contains anywhere from 5 to 20% THC, whereas hemp products, still coming from the same species of cannabis plant, does not even have 1% THC. So when you produce hemp-derived CBD products, you're getting all the deliciousness of CBD with no psychoactive THC effects. And that's what has made CBD so popular in recent years. Citizens are willing to try the CBD products before trying products with THC in it. CBD has assimilated into United States culture much faster than THC has. Now you can find CBD in restaurants, you could find it online on Amazon and other mainstream distributors. So the 2018 Farm Bill shifted the regulation of hemp. Again, hemp is all parts of the cannabis plant that contain less than 0.3% THC. Why they chose that number, I'm not sure, but anything under 1% will have a very insignificant effect in getting you intoxicated. So the Farm Bill shifted the regulation of hemp and hemp-derived products out of drug law land, the Controlled Substances Act, and also under the purview of the DEA, and into agricultural laws and under the purview of the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. So now hemp is treated as an agricultural product, whereas before it was treated as a controlled substance. Now it's just treated like any other staple crop, like corn and soybeans. But we have not been able to grow hemp for decades. We're behind every industrialized country in regards to this agricultural commodity. Legally speaking, the federal government, through the Farm Bill, gave authority to states to adopt their own plan to grow and sell hemp-derived products. So, states can implement laws that are stricter than the federal Farm Bill, but if the state does not implement their own hemp program, they were going to have to be regulated under the federal hemp program. Now, the federal hemp program is still in the process of developing regulations, but it's expected that final rules will be implemented by the end of the calendar year 2019. So the federal Farm Bill also allowed hemp producers to participate in interstate commerce contingent upon both states that are doing the interstate commerce in this scenario are producing hemp under the state program or the federal program. It's interesting because the Farm Bill is going to permit interstate commerce, but cannabis operators like Trulieve and Curaleaf cannot move their products out of state. But they're still engaging in interstate commerce. Cannabis, anything above 0.3% THC, will not be allowed and is not allowed to be transported in interstate commerce because it's still federally illegal substance. But when Curaleaf opens in other states, so for example, what makes Curaleaf a multi-state operator is that they have a Florida license, but they've also obtained Massachusetts licenses and things like that, that's still operating in interstate commerce. The United States Supreme Court case, Gonzalez v. Reyes, said that one lady growing a plant in her backyard was interstate commerce. That's how broad the Supreme Court has defined interstate commerce. They explained that local use of her growing her one plant in her home affected supply and demand in the national cannabis market, making the regulation of intrastate use essential to regulating the drug's national market. So Congress can regulate cannabis under this Controlled Substances Act. Congress has this power through Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which is the Commerce Clause, and Congress has this power to create national free trade zones, not to allow the federal government to create massive market inefficiencies, or even prohibit interstate commerce in some scenarios, which Congress has done here. But Congress has still not issued any federal regulations for cannabis. Congress's inability to deal with cannabis in a serious manner has put the United States market well behind competitors like Israel and Canada, both of whom have fully legalized cannabis, but most importantly, don't allow trade barriers between jurisdictions in their countries. In late February of this year, Senator Cory Booker, Democrat out of New Jersey, reintroduced the Marijuana Justice Act, which would legalize cannabis as a matter of federal law. But operators are still willing to step into this federally illegal space and operate under state cannabis laws because of guidance from the Cole Memo, which was issued by the Department of Justice, which says that the Department of Justice will not use federal resources to go after cannabis companies that operate under state cannabis laws. Even though MMTCs like Curaleaf, Trulieve, Liberty, all of the Florida MMTCs, even though they're selling federally illegal substance, they're willing to operate under Florida law because of guidance from the Department of Justice that, hey, we're not going to mess with you if you comply with your state's cannabis laws. Now, this is different from operators who want to sell CBD even without a license from the state because of the federal farm bill. And law enforcement is still seizing hemp from these producers. So back in January, a semi-truck in Oklahoma carrying over 18,000 pounds of hemp was stopped. Suspected of it being marijuana, the drivers were arrested, and officers said when they walked up to the 18-wheeler, they could smell the cannabis emitting from the inside of the truck. Which isn't surprising because it's still the same plant material as cannabis that most people, think smells, and it just doesn't have as much THC. But several samples were tested, and several of the samples that were tested registered at 0.4% THC. And as you know, the legal threshold to classify the plant as hemp is 0.3%. The drivers were eventually released, but this just shows that officials still want to take a deep dive into someone who might be transporting hemp. And the tests came after the hemp was impounded. Maybe the hemp wasn't stored right, maybe it went bad, or as the CBD bales age, there's potentially a conversion that could increase the amount of THC. And officials are still willing to pull you over and seize your product. But anyways, back to this week. At Disney World, an Orange County deputy found CBD oil in great-grandma's purse and subsequently arrested her. She ended up spending 12 hours behind bars and then was released on a $2,000 bond. Her name is Hester, and she began using CBD oil for her arthritis. I'm not sure, again, if she obtained it from an MMTC, but I'm pretty sure she didn't because I don't think the story would have ended this way if she would have just had her medical card on her, shown them the products from the MMTC. But this comes at a very interesting time because last week the Florida legislature passed Senate Bill 1020, which creates our state hemp program under the Florida Department of Agriculture. Us creating Senate Bill 1020 is Florida exercising its right under the federal farm bill to implement our hemp program. We had a full discussion on Senate Bill 1020 on last week's show, so be sure to head over there if you want a full breakdown. Once Governor DeSantis signs the hemp bill will take effect on July 1st, 2019. Now, despite the fact that CBD is still sold in stores on shelves across our state that aren't by MMTCs, I'm talking vitamin shops, gas stations. This CBD oil is still technically illegal in the state of Florida if you're not selling as a medical marijuana treatment center. But once July 1st hits, CBD will no longer be considered an illegal controlled substance under Florida law. Now, this doesn't mean that those CBD distributors, these gray market sellers, are 100% in the clear. The FDA is still in the background regulating CBD that is sold for human consumption. Even though CBD might be legal as a hemp-derived product, the FDA has not issued regulations that allows producers and distributors to sell CBD as a dietary supplement. And the FDA isn't messing around. They've cracked down on gray market CBD retailers. So if you choose to sell CBD outside of being a medical marijuana treatment center in Florida, you're still exposing yourself to potential liability because the FDA is still there in the background. But under Florida law, these sellers will probably get some relief come July 1st. Unlike our current cannabis program, the Florida hemp bill does not have a cap on the number of licenses that can be issued to produce hemp. Now, just an example of the FDA crackdowns, in April, the FDA sent warning letters to 3 companies, one being in Florida, Pot Network Holdings, saying that these companies were making unsubstantiated claims relating to more than a dozen different products and spanning over multiple product web pages, online stores, and social media websites. The main thing the FDA is trying to prevent the CBD producers from doing is making health claims and then selling it at stores and telling people it's going to fix X, Y, and Z problem. Those are who the FDA is really going to target. But again, we're talking retail sales. We're talking head shops, selling bars of soaps, tinctures, topicals, things of that nature. Now, whether CBD is permitted as a food additive, that's something the FDA needs to address. The FDA will hopefully address this in their highly anticipated public hearing on May 31st, just 3 weeks from now. Hopefully, the FDA speaks about CBD and issues potentially some more guidance on that May 31st meeting. We will for sure keep you guys updated with that as it relates directly to Florida law. So these operators that you might go see down the street that aren't an MMTC, they're still willing to sell CBD products. I mean, when you have CVS carrying Curaleaf CBD products, that to me is an informal sign that the gates have broken down and sends the message to smaller operators like, your vitamin shops and your gas stations to try their hands in the market. These business owners are willing to take the risk that the FDA will not come after them. I mean, this is all happening in the FDA's face, and they haven't done anything about the CVS deal. So to me, that's a symbolic go-ahead. As states implement their hemp programs, we're going to see CBD market mature, and operators who are not licensed by the state under Florida cannabis laws maybe grab a hemp license and legally sell CBD in Florida, with the FDA continuing to loom in the background. I think by the time all the dust settles, the FDA will have issued some rules about selling CBD for human consumption, and that way CBD is going to be good to go from top to bottom. The thing is, we just still don't have hemp rules on the books yet. Once we have hemp rules in, then it's going to be okay to sell under state law, and we're still going to have to wait until DeSantis signs the bill for the Florida Department of Agriculture to then promulgate rules for the program. Once the Department of Agriculture creates these rules, they're going to have to seek approval from the Federal Department of Agriculture, and this whole process might not be completed until the fall. So until then, selling CBD in Florida, not as an MMTC, you're still operating in the gray market. As long as Florida does not have a hemp program, CBD is not to be sold unless it's by an MMTC. But this isn't stopping people, as I mentioned before. There's restaurants that sell CBD and they're just saying it's fine, no one's going to come after me. But the FDA has cracked down. They have seized CBD products and they have told operators to stop selling CBD products. Once Florida does have a hemp program, the FDA could maybe still not have cleared up their stance on selling CBD for human consumption. We're currently operating in murky waters, and we'll keep you in the loop with everything in Florida cannabis and how it connects with major movements at the federal level. Back to Hester at Disney World, though. The Orange County Sheriff's Office later reported that charges against her were eventually dropped. But she was arrested. Florida counties are using resources to arrest people, but then don't do anything about the gas stations, the health food stores that are selling CBD in the open. It doesn't make much sense. Even though these outlets still are not allowed to sell CBD, Florida collects sales tax on these products, and then they go and arrest elderly women who are not causing harm at all. Her vacation ended up being ruined because of something so harmless. You can buy CBD in any county, but this is just another example of how unclear the CBD and cannabis space is to law enforcement. Tweet me or email me if I'm incorrect, but I don't think she bought the product from an MMTC, nor do I think she's a registered medical cannabis patient. I think the ending would have turned out differently if she was able to pull out her medical cannabis card and say, listen, officer, I'm a patient. This is my medicine, but I'm really not sure. In Florida, you really don't know. There's room for argument either way. But this story shows that we need more education, not only on the law enforcement side, but on the consumer side as well. You take the risk of bringing your CBD products out of your house and taking them when you travel. It's just how the times are right now. And that's why I'm here every week covering this industry, because consumers need to become knowledgeable about the industry and legalities of their products. Disney World is a higher risk area for something like this to happen because they have tight security. They don't allow outside alcohol onto their property. So just be aware of this stuff when you weigh the risks of traveling with cannabis or other hemp-derived products. But Michael Holland has great quotes and more background on this story on Fox News articles linked down below in the show notes.